I love all three together because it's like you are the colleague, you are the teacher, and you're the student. But there's one truth. And I wonder, how do you think your character hold on to that truth that they have?
Woof. The truth in this movie to me is like holding on to very wet sand. And you just are trying to, with every conversation, it's slipping away and your relationship with it is altered. There's so much to think about as a character in this movie with every person that you're talking to and how you perform in front of that person, how you are presenting yourself. And I think that for me, there's so much posturing that I do with everybody. And then when you see me alone in my office, those are the only times that you see me sort of unravel when I'm by myself.
Mm. How about you, Andrew? How do you think your character hold on to his truth?
Yeah, like white knuckle for dear life, like life and death feeling. And it takes a certain degree of self-delusion, it takes a certain degree of obfuscation. And I think to survive, otherwise, yeah, I think, that's the thing about, I think what's cool about these characters and the potential they each have for self-revelation, self-reckoning is that it is kind of a death that happens, that you get to, the old self dies for the new self to emerge. And actually it's you kind of pray for that in a way, so that some expanded version of who you are can emerge and live.
Ayo?
I wonder, because I think for Maggie, like habitually, she doesn't much. Like there's things in the film where you realize she often might not concern herself that much with the truth, more just with whatever she needs to keep going. And so then when there is a moment of truth, what that means and the weight of it, I think it's quite, propulsive for that reason and quite complicated. Yeah, I think it's I think also because there's a lot of things that she's like hiding from herself. Mm-hmm. And there's like a lot of truths about her life that maybe if she were to really face them, it might be too painful to keep going. Which is not to say that it's not important, but I think that's kind of the space that she was in.
Yeah. How are you, Nora?
I'm good. How are you, Ruben?
I'm excited to talk to you.
Excited to talk to you as well.
I just recently watched the movie last night and it's still haunting me for particular reason. The first one is, how do you describe power in that environment? How do you imagine it? Because when you have also this figure like Julia Roberts' character, and then the relationship with her husband, which I loved it. How do you portray power in an academic environment? And it's just timeless because it's talking about cancel culture. It's about the definition of truth. So how do you imagine something like that and then see it on the screen? How do you feel about it?
Wow, I feel like there was a lot of questions in there.
Yes, I think the whole thing there.
I mean, as well, I think your first question was how do I define power? And I think that, you're right that the film deals with power, and I think power ultimately is a currency in the same way that like our currencies are sort of this fictive yet real thing that we've all agreed to subscribe to. And I feel like power is the same thing, and it looks different depending on different cultures and different areas or environments. But I think in the academic environment, obviously, it is about sort of this worshipful, almost deity-like figure of the storied professor, of the tenured professor, of this person who's the bestower of knowledge and at the front of the classroom almost performing, And I think with any sort of performance like that, if you puncture it, I think it can be deeply disorienting, And so I think the hope was with all of these characters that the audience can see that a character has an idea about themselves, an idea that they're portraying and putting out into the world, and those two are not always in concert with one another.
And that definition, because what I love is the balance also between being funny but also being serious. Is this something that you work with Luca during filming, or is something that you created on paper and you just trust him on his flow and choosing of the casting?
Yeah, I don't think I can take sole credit for anything because this was such a collaborative effort. But it was, I can definitely love intellectual elitism while I understand that there's something so ridiculous about it, you know, like, and about the jargon inherent in philosophical musings and things like that. You know, it's so willfully opaque in a way that's really frustrating and silly, I think. So there was always that level of humor, and I always wanted it to feel a little bit tongue in cheek, like not like these conversations. The opening dinner party didn't take itself too seriously, in the sense where I would hope that the audience has the view of like, oh, right, these people are having these quote unquote very serious conversations, but they're enjoying themselves so much in it, you know?
Because they feel comfortable. This is what they do. And that's, on the first scene, that's how you feel.
Yeah.
Because they're super snobby, we could say, but they're also friends, and it feels like that.
Exactly. And there's a certain amount of, there's like a covetousness of the snobbiness, and also a sort of like, oh God, guys, come on. Like, don't take yourself so seriously. But I think that was also Luca. You know, I don't think Luca takes himself so seriously, even though he takes his art incredibly seriously, you know, but he understands that. I think he loves irony, I think, and he loves opposition, and there's always some awkward comedy in that, you know?
I'm a cinephile. So from the beginning of your film, I noticed probably things, but this is probably in my mind. I saw something about Woody Allen, the way he introduced his characters with alphabetical order, and a lot of Hitchcock, like takes like Hitchcock, and the music goes loud. Is that one intentional, or just something that I just recreated in my mind?
Nora Garrett scripts is a roller coaster of a script that kind of requests you to sit on the edge of your seat and requests you to deal with your preconception, and then eventually end up finding a way in which you are shattered in your preconceptions, and you have to change your mind and start a conversation.
Yeah.
And I cannot think of anything more powerful than the language of cinema to help me in bringing that to life.
Something also that I love is that relationship between Alma and Hank. That relationship, it just makes me look like they live how the academic things are. Like, okay, we know the truth, we know what's going on, but we prefer to protect what it means to people. It means something for the marriage, it's something the academic. So we need to protect ourselves, how we portray to people. Is that correlation? Because I felt it's like kind of the same politics game that they have in the relationship also in the academics.
I think that you have a point there in that these characters, they put a facade constantly to sell themselves to the world in a way that could give them an idea of self that is better than who they are. But I think that, for instance, Frederick, the husband of Julia Roberts' character's Alma, kind of is probably the only one who doesn't need to do that, and is ready to go for his own fragilities and expose himself because of how much he loves her.
Yeah, and I felt like watching your film, it's so many different definitions of what is truth. It's very personal, but there's one truth. It's just how do you play with that definition of the truth? Because every one of your characters has a definition of what happened and what is the truth. It's a kind of like a shifting play of power and
Well, when you start to put together a group of people who all want to affirm each other, oneself against the other, then you will have this kind of like round of shifting trading places, you know?
And the music, I think the music, the way you use music is just to create the tension, but also it's funny because my favorite sequence is when Michael Stuhlbarg character get upset and he goes out to the living room and put loud music and then start walking in and walking out while something serious is being talked. Do you feel that using the comedy relief is also part of the telling a story like this one?
Of course. I think when you make a movie, you really are playing with your toys, which are the tools of cinema. And that moment is paradoxical because, you know, there is a sort of like war at play between all these characters, particularly Frederick and Maggie. And so when he is ousted by the wife from the dinner table, he decides that he's going to really like break the harmony between the two women, and he interacts with them forcefully.
You have said that you never judge your characters. And the audience shouldn't judge your character because it's just people doing things. But when you see what happened, how do you connect with a character without judging them?
No, judge somebody. To judge somebody doesn't mean that you have to have an idea of somebody doesn't mean that you have to judge them. You know, I can understand a friend, and I can make my mind about who they are, how they see themselves, how they live their life. and be open to that difference.
There's a great sequence when Julia is confronting Ayo characters outside, and she's saying things that she knew before, but she preferred that character always admire her because she felt good. So that's playing with her ego.
I think that is a moment in which these two women really get to a place in which they're really breaking the system of the relationship, and they're shattering it to the most daring consequences.
Which is make more beautiful the ending.
Yeah, because at the end they find each other again?
Exactly.
Do they want to reconcile, or are they going again into this kind of tug of war?
Yeah, but also the place where they meet, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just like dark, but it has to happen that way.
Yeah.
Luca, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.